Welcome back to Crime Time Podcast, and we have a just tragic Grizzly, only in Florida, true crime case today that happened some time back, but it happens to be back in the news because it is a capital punishment case, a DEATH penalty case. And as you may know, right, these cases can drag out when it comes to the court process for quite some time, as there's many appeals to be had. And then even after one is put on DEATH roll, there can still be a long course of action before that date actually comes. And this is the only woman in the state of Florida currently on DEATH roll. And man, you know the whole only in Florida saying, like, the craziest things happen in Florida, whether it's true crime cases or just wildish happen in the news, like Florida man gets methed up and punches an alligator in the face or something like that. You know what I mean? This case is like everything that you would think of when you think of a horrific incident happening in Florida. And it happened in a Florida trailer park on top of it all. It's just heartbreaking, just something else. And what the victim endured in this case is absolutely crazy, but there may be more than one victim. I don't know, though. I need to know from all you guys out there. So make sure, don't be shy. Get in the comments in regards to everything we speak on in this video. Sub up and hit all the buttons for me. But as I said, this case happened all the way back in 2010. This woman was originally sentenced to DEATH in 2012, but here we are now, 2025. I believe all her appeals have exhausted. That's why it's back in the news. Meet Tina Brown, now 54 years old. Again, the only woman in the state of Florida currently on DEATH roll. And let me know what you guys all think about the DEATH penalty. I mean, it's always been a wildly debated thing. Many people feel like a lot of innocent people get put to DEATH. Some people are like, hey, just lock the individuals up forever, because listen, there's a lot of evil in this world. That's a fact. Like what we're going to get into with this case, this is just pure evil. There's no way you can really unpack it or break it down for someone to carry out these actions. It's like you're a demon in human form. I talk about that all the time on this channel. There's a lot of demons walking this earth. It's good versus evil. It's soul warfare out here. Don't lose your soul. You know what I mean? Don't get caught up in the evil that's going on. I'm dead serious, y'all. But back in 2010, in a Florida trailer park up by Pensacola in the panhandle, this woman was the ringleader in this horrific plot that was revenge, I guess you could say, and it's just all fucked up. They manipulated this poor woman into thinking that the beef that they had was going to get squashed. And then right here, it's all in this intro, right? Meet Tina Brown, convicted of burning woman alive. Now the only woman on Florida death row, Tina Brown was convicted of first-degree murder after she and others ambushed Adriana Zimmerman, used a stun gun, stuffed her in a trunk, drove to the woods, doused her in gas, and watched her burn. And one of the other individuals, as there's two other co-defendants, three co-Ds altogether, three co-conspirators. The one that got the lightest sentence, Heather Lee, who's now in her 30s. She was like 28, I believe, at the time that this all went down. She got the lightest sentence of 25 years. She cooperated with law enforcement, gave them all the info. She actually testified that this woman, Tina Brown, after they drove this woman out to the woods, pulled her out the trunk, continued to beat on her, lit her on fire. She was ecstatically jumping up and down, talking about burn, bitch, burn, celebrating, happy. That's just pure evil. It's mind-blowing. And then the other co-defendant who got a life sentence, that's where I wanted to get into. If you think that there's two victims in this case, and I don't mean any disrespect. What this Adriana Zimmerman, no relation to George Zimmerman, as we're talking about Florida, only in Florida, and R.I.P. Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman, wannabe cop, punk ass, harassing this kid, wanting to be the neighborhood watch. And I don't know, I just can't stand Zimmerman, man. was told by law enforcement, fall back, you're not the cops. You know what I mean? Then he stalked this kid and harassed him until a physical confrontation jumped off, and then he kills him and walks on it. It's absolutely sickening to me. Not to mention all the games he's played online since all that went down and he walked free, like taunting people, and just, he ain't sorry that happened at all one bit. He's an evil sack of garbage. That's a fact. But Adriana Zimmerman, the victim in this case, is not related to him at all. I mean, the way, like, only in Florida, who knows? You know what I'm saying? But the real victim, the main victim, it's insane. She was lit on fire, right? While alive after being beaten and gagged and all that. It's shocking. You would think, man, I hope she died fast and didn't, suffer, right? But she somehow survived this, walked miles to get help. And when EMTs came, they said, man, she has burns on 90% of her body. How did she walk this far? Like, it's crazy. How can this be? And you're like, man, why did she have to suffer like that? But the other side of the coin is, as you know, about a death confession. You know what I'm saying? An example of that, Tupac's killer, who's in trial now, in custody, gonna face trial for his killing after all these years. And I'm pretty confident he'll be convicted. Let me know if you think he will be. But back when that all went down, the police that rolled up on a bicycle asked him, who did this to you? Tupac told him, hey, fuck you. But had he told him, that is legal precedent, a death confession can go on the record as evidence in a case. And when EMT showed up for this woman and law enforcement, she told them who did this to her. So even though it's horrible that she somehow survived and walked all that way, suffering unimaginable pain and just torment, maybe her KILLERSs would not have been found or convicted had she not done that. You know what I mean? Who knows? Tap in and let me know what you think about it all. But that's terrible, man. And I had to lay all that out when getting into this next part of what I was saying, that do you think one of these co-defendants, the main woman who we're talking about on death row's daughter, do you think she could be somewhat of a victim? And again, like, you can't compare what this woman who lost her life went through, but a victim of circumstance, if you will.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. An Escambia County woman serving a life sentence for helping beat, burn, and kill an acquaintance will be getting a new sentence. It's due to changes in Florida law when it comes to sentencing juveniles.
Brittany Miller was just 16 years old when she and her mother attacked a 19-year-old woman in 2010. Adriana Zimmerman was beaten, burned, and she died 16 days later. Miller's mother, Tina Brown, was sentenced to death. Another accomplice, Heather Lee, was given a reduced sentence because she testified against Brown. But Miller was a minor, and new laws mean she could be getting a lesser sentence. Channel 3's Christina Leavenworth has more.
So the crime happened more than 7 years ago. Brittany Miller was sentenced to life in prison in 2013. Now, 4 years later, the attorneys are back before a judge. Miller's attorney is asking for a 30-year sentence, while the state is asking for life in prison. Brittany Miller stood up and tearfully read a letter to the judge.
I apologize to her family and her children, and I take full responsibility for my actions. I also know for a fact that if my mom wouldn't have been there, I wouldn't have been there.
She says she's changed since she's been in prison.
I needed this moment to mature and grow up. The person I am now would have never participated in this. If anything, I would have tried to stop it.
Her attorney says a life of abuse and drugs contributed to her being a part of the crime. He says her mother was the ringleader and Brittany didn't have the mental capacity to say no.
She had a very traumatic childhood. And
the drug abuse and being around drug dealing, drug smoking, sexual abuse.
All this is relevant because the Supreme Court decided juveniles could be sentenced to life, but only if there was a sentencing hearing that took into account the child's age, the crime, and upbringing. Now a judge must weigh arguments and decide on a sentence. The state attorney's office feels despite her upbringing, she deserves to spend life in prison.
Well, this was a particularly heinous crime. She was very involved in the crime. The effect on the victim and his family was immense. But the nature of the crime, the severity of the crime, the way the killing took place was very heinous and atrocious, and we feel that the life sentence is appropriate.
So that was some years back, just like this case has played out for a while, still hitting the news because of the death sentence and death row and all that and appeals and everything, which again, I think those have been exhausted at this point, and there will be a date soon. At this point, there still is no date or timetable for when she will be put to death. But the daughter's case played out for a while as well, because as you heard, she was 16 years old when this all happened. And you hear talking to the judge saying, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't have been there, period, if it wasn't for my mother. And now, as I've matured while behind bars, I would have did something different to stop that from happening. Do you guys, again, it's so hard to really have this conversation because of what they did to this woman from her taking part in it, but just obviously from the way you heard someone from the court or whoever that was, a lawyer, talking about she endured actual abuse, D-rugs all around, just a fucked up, broken home and messed up life, and then she was a juvenile at the time. That's why they originally allowed her to plead no contest. And then they were saying, hey, if you're unhappy with the way things go, if and when you're declared an adult, in the court process plays out, we'll allow you to take that plea back. And you heard him arguing, hey, we want a 30-year sentence. The state was like, nah, life. This is too messed up. She needs a life sentence. And again, so death sentence for Tina Brown, the only woman currently on death row in Florida. Her co-defendant daughter, who was 16. Now I guess she would be pushing 30, I believe. She got life. And Heather Lee, the one who copped a plea and gave up all the info, she got 25 years. So she got off the lightest. But I just want to know if you guys look at the daughter as a victim of circumstance at all, if you feel bad for her, if you feel they shouldn't hit her with life or what. Because again, think about it. This woman who carried out this evil plot, this torturous plot, she raised this girl. She was a product of her parenting. And to get to the background of what led up to these horrific events taking place, again, Lee copped a plea and gave up all the info. It says the four women were initially good friends, but their relationships, particularly between Miller, Brown, and Zimmerman, were volatile and often escalated to violence. Brown had previously accused Zimmerman of slashing her tires. Zimmerman had accused Brown of shattering a window in her car, having her boyfriend arrested, and reporting to the Florida Department of Children and Families that she was providing inadequate care to her children, a Florida Supreme Court opinion stated. So, and maybe that was true, obviously, with what we see happened. We're talking about how this girl was raised. Or was it the other way around, that she called on Zimmerman saying that? But regardless, man, CPS, that's not a game. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people over the years, and when I was younger, I've seen it happen with friends and people I knew where people are beefing. And like you heard here, there's fights going down. They're all neighbors in this Florida trailer park. You know what I mean? In the trailer park on top of it all. Not that there's nothing wrong with living in a trailer, but it's just such a Florida story to the core. But they're calling CPS. And again, in my life, I've seen where people call and make up lies as a form of trying to get back at someone. And listen, CPS is not for games. I'm someone who was taken out of my home and adopted and stuff like that. It's there for good reason. And as we see in the true crime world, so often they miss situations that they could have done something in. We obviously know maybe it's not the best system, it doesn't work the way in which it should as always. But to accuse someone of some lies for revenge is BS. And I'm not saying that's what happened in this instance. I'm just saying, in like seeing these true crime cases play out, like, you're fucked up if you're lying on someone like that, but also you're wasting the time of the workers who could be working on a case where there really is some horrific neglect or abuse going on. You know what I mean? You could be delaying them getting to a case like that out here playing games. And that's what I'm saying. You see, they're fighting with each other. Oh, she banged my boyfriend, this, that, and the third. Like, listen, beef can get crazy. And comment if you ever went through ish like that growing up, where there was neighbors or whatever not getting along and all this back and forth drama. It's just better to leave it alone. You know what I mean? Like, back when I was in my teens, early 20s, there was all this crazy drama. And I was like, man, this ish is for the birds. And it's like, you got to be more mature to walk away from this ish. And like, you know what I mean? If you're living life like that, you got to think, man, what the fuck am I doing, man? This ain't what it is. I got to grow the fuck up. But in this case, that ain't what happened. As Lee testified that she had intervened on multiple occasions to stop physical altercations between Miller and Zimmerman. On one occasion, Miller, who had recently discovered that Zimmerman was actually involved with her boyfriend, attempted to strike Zimmerman. Zimmerman, however, defended herself by attempting to disable Miller with a stun gun. Later that day, Lee informed Brown that Zimmerman had used a stun gun on Brown's daughter, to which Brown responded that she was going to get Zimmerman. And we hear that about the stun gun, which ended up being used in this horrific plot, right? Several days later, on March 24, 2010, Brown invited Zimmerman to her home under the guise of rekindling their friendship. Instead, the trio ambushed Zimmerman, reportedly using a stun gun on her repeatedly and stuffing a sock into her mouth to stifle her screams for help. So I'm guessing she was like, oh, you want to use a stun gun? You want to use a stun gun on my daughter, bitch? You know what I mean? Shocking her with the stun gun and all that. And again, think about this daughter being there for all this. Again, the real victim is deceased, but is she a victim as well? You know, like the fact that her mother had her a part of this. Do you think, and again, was this supposed to go this far? I guess this woman's testifying that it did, you know what I mean? But in some instances, I've known people who were involved in fights and beef and stuff like that, where here, clearly this escalated to where they carried out this evil plot. But there's been other instances where people were fighting that I've known of, where people lost their life just getting jumped or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, real talk, man, you only get one life to live out here from what we know in this realm. You know what I mean? Not on the spiritual side and all that. But again, man, all this drama is for the birds. You know what I'm saying? Like, being more mature that's what's up. And the sooner you can find that out in life, the better your life will be. But listen, violence ain't the way. But it's like, sometimes in instances like this, it's like, yo, if it's got to go that way, hey, we'll have a head up fight or whatever. And you got to have a party there to, you know, be the voice of reason. Like, okay, boom, fight's over. You won, whatever. Now you two leave each other alone. So some wild ish like this don't go down. Like, can you believe this? They carried out this plot. Come over. We're going to squash the beef, and just ambushed her. The woman forced Zimmerman into the trunk of Brown's car, drove her to a wooded area, removed her from the trunk, and then continued beating her with fists and blunt objects and attacking her with the stun gun. So again, the stun gun, she's like, oh, you want to use it? I can use it too. And even after the beating and all that, taking her out to the woods, still stunning her when they pulled her out, about to light her up. They then doused the still conscious woman with gasoline and lit her on fire. In court, Lee testified that she was standing beside Miller, who exuberantly jumped up and down and screamed, "Burn, bitch, burn." Can you believe that? Like, that's fucking crazy, man. After a few minutes, the woman returned to their car and drove away. And here we are now. Like we said, this was 2010, 2012. Brown got her life sentence. And here we are now in 2025 with this hitting the news everywhere. Meet Tina Brown, the only woman currently on death row in Florida. 15 years have passed, and I think she's going to get that date soon. This is just insane, man. Like, Florida really is a crazy place. On top of everything else that we were talking about, listen, no disrespect to any Floridians out there, but I want to hear from everyone. Do you think that that's true, or do you think like, oh, the media just hypes up things that happen in Florida, crazy things happen everywhere? Because that is true, but it just seems like the most wildest-ish ever goes down in Florida. I lived in Florida for a little while myself. My life definitely took a wild turn. Not the greatest time living there, but, totally unrelated to anything here. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I don't even know why I brought it up, but Florida's a crazy place, man. It's crazy to drive there, a lot of driving, fatalities, and just a lot of wild-ish going down. But this is just something else. This isn't one of those, Florida man got drunk and did this. Oh, Florida person comes into McDonald's tripping because their Big Mac was made wrong. No, this is like some next level evil carried out. And with all that being said, let me know what you think about it all. Once again, just the death penalty as a whole, if you feel it should be a thing. Again, I know it's a debate that's been going on as long as the criminal justice system has been going on. Like, some people feel like, hey, like, and as I pointed out, there definitely are demons walking the face of this earth, for sure. You got to stay focused. You know what I mean? Stay centered. Live a productive life. It's good versus evil. Are you good or are you evil? You know what I mean? Don't get caught up in the evil and demonry going on. But some people feel like some of these demons, you just got to put them down. They're just pure evil. But some are like, man, if we do that, we're stooping to their level. Let them just live out the rest of their life in prison. What say you when it comes to that topic? And again, the fact that this victim, you know what I'm saying? You hear that, like, they beat this girl down. They stuffed her in a trunk. They gagged her. This is terrible. They lit her on fire. Oh my God, I hope that she DIE'd instantly so she didn't suffer. No, somehow the fire went out. They drove away and left her there. You know what I'm saying? And right here, Zimmerman somehow survived the brutal attack and walked approximately a third of a mile to a residence seeking help. An EMT who arrived estimated that over 90% of Zimmerman's body was burned, noting that her skin was charred and falling off. She had severe head trauma and what appeared to be a broken or dislocated jaw. That's crazy. So I think I originally said 3 miles, but still a third of a mile. The fact that she could muster the strength to walk at all, the fact that she lived at all blows my mind, but it's just terrible to think someone suffered that much. But then again, like I said, had she not went somewhere, got someone to call 911 for, talk to the EMT and law enforcement and let them know who did this, maybe they walk. I don't know the circumstances if there was someone else who was going to let it be known what happened, or they would have skated free. But here we are, 2025. One woman, 15 years later in the year of 2025, one woman is going to get executed. One got off with a 25-year sentence, so she'll have 10 more years left on her sentence. And then the other co-defendant, the daughter, getting life. Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Do me the solid, hit all the buttons, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. This is Crime Time Podcast, and I'm up out of here. Peace. And stay focused, guys. Beware the evil that lurks in this world, especially in Florida. I'm just joking about that part, but I'm out of here.